Not a bad view for a Saturday morning, is it? Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, where today you join me out with this beautiful Isle of Man green M3 Xdrive, kindly supplied by the boys and girls at Inchcape Chelmsford as per usual, because they like to support me and I like to support them back, to the point obviously where I'm buying cars from them. Now a few changes have been made since I previously drove the M4 G82, which is obviously the same generation as this, back in 2021. At the time of driving that, there was only the M3 and the M4. Now 6 months later, down that production line, they started to release the M3 and M4 Xdrive. Now this is an Xdrive version, so that might be a bit more appealing to people that drive their M cars quite a lot in the winter, because M cars have famously been terrible in the winter in like previous years, so that might be a bit more appealing. You can still turn the Xdrive off and have fun with your rear wheel drive, and you can play with the M slip as well, depending on how much fun you want and how far you want to go with it. That being the biggest change to sort of the M3 and the M4 market. As well as that, you've had a price increase because the world's gone mad with price and inflation. So base specs back then were around £75,000. A base spec M3 now, this is rear wheel drive, is 81,175, and I think if you want the Xdrive version, you're looking at a couple of grand on top of that. There's slight little differences as well between the M3 and the M4. Obviously you've got the practicality side of things as well, whether you want a two-door sporty version or you want the M3 as a more practical family-ish car with the four-door. But the biggest difference comes from inside the car. You can actually physically see it, which is the iDrive 8 system has now been updated and integrated into the M3 and M4. So back when I drove the M4, the Tanzanite Blue M4 in 2021, that was a late iDrive 7 system, which had the more traditional digital cluster and a separate center section, center console with the radio, and you had physical buttons for the climate control. Whereas this iDrive 8 system, it's all sort of integrated into one long curved screen, which is nice, but they've got rid of the physical buttons for the climate control and integrated it into a sub menu, which I will show you in a minute. Oh, so comfortable. I mean, even for the standard seats, there's plenty of adjustment on them. The bolsters puff up. You can adjust the back lumbar. I think that's the right word for it. But yeah, they're huggy seats. Two options on the seats, obviously. You got these standard seats, or you got the carbon backed bucket seats. It's a tough one with the seats. They're a £3.5 grand option. Again, when I first drove the M4 back in 21, when they were first released, they were part of a package deal, package option, which was £7 grand, and you couldn't have the seats separately. Now you can have the seats separately, but the bucket seats, it's tough, because I would have them definitely, and I'll put a picture up comparing them. The bit in the middle that sort of divides your legs, the carbon in the middle, and the bolsters on the sides, I can see them getting ruined over the course of a couple of years with getting in and out of the car, but at the same time they are perfect. Whereas these ones are friendly. I know my girlfriend didn't like the carbon seats with a bit in the middle. She said it wasn't friendly. So yeah, there's things like that, but everything in here, one way or another, you're going to be happy with it. So in my opinion, the only thing I don't like about the iDrive 8, some people do, don't get me wrong, is this bit. The screen looks lovely. I just want my climate control buttons back there. This part of iDrive 8, I love. There's a lot going on, but I kind of like it. It's all techy and dancey and showy offy, and I'm a sucker for tech. But the business end of driver's position hasn't really changed that much, and I really like that. You got your standard M1, M2 configuration buttons, nice carbon and dimpled flappy paddles on the back, heated steering, little touches of carbon here and there. Yeah, I like this. I like this. I like this. Not a fan of this, but I think I'd live with it, because I know the M2 is going to have that as well when that comes out. So it's a kind of bear that to enjoy all of that. Now, as opposed to having sport, Sport Plus and Efficient buttons down here like on previous M cars, you now have an M mode, which is for road, sport or track modes, or a setup button, which is where your normal driver's modes come under. So if we press that, and then on the screen comes up all your different driver settings, and then as soon as you go into Sport and Sport Plus, you can hear the exhaust and the engine sort of open up a bit. Just gets a little bit more deeper on the engine noise. Now obviously, this being an Xdrive as well, you now have the Xdrive option where you can go all four-wheel drive sport or rear-wheel drive, and then start to play with your M traction control. Same as the G80 M4. On this new generation of M car, you now have the brake settings, so you can change your brakes from comfort to sport. Personally, I don't see any need to change it for driving on the roads. Obviously for track mode you might put it on sport mode, but brakes are fine. Steering, again, comfort's pretty decent for on the road, so I personally don't feel like I need to change that. Chassis I might change up to Sport and Sport Plus. Sport Plus is going to be very hard around town, but yeah, again, Sport Plus for the engine settings for me. Now I don't think this would actually make a bad family car, because driver's seat is set up to my position. I'm 5'9", so probably average. Leg room isn't too bad, to a point where I'd be complaining about it on a long drive and feeling uncomfortable. Some climate control features down here just in the centre, with 2 USB charging ports, which is always handy. Headroom, not too bad, there's a couple of inches there. Now I just want to say, before I open the boot, how good does this paint look in this sunlight? It's popping so much. But yeah, anyway, electrically assisted tailgate. The boot is deceivingly big, a lot bigger than you'd probably think from the outside. I'd say you'd be able to fit maybe 2 suitcases in there at a squeeze. So enough of the boring bit. I think it's time to go and enjoy this M3 in this glorious British weather on the river. Now, to try and improve the sound quality of my recordings today, to try and make this video that little bit better, I've gone for a new setup. So if I show you what I've done, I've got my Canon camera on a tripod suction mount, but it's a little bit wobbly. Now that's going to be gyrating all over the place. I might be able to make that slightly better in the editing software. Failing that, I'll use the footage from the GoPro and then overlap the sound recording from the mic. Let's go and enjoy this car for the hours that we've got it. Now we're just starting off in comfort, just to get out to where we need to go. Nothing too fancy, but of course we'll have the valves open, so we just... You can't not like that, can you? I would say the cabin noise in this car is pretty much spot on. There's not too much road noise, considering the compound of the tyres and our roads not being the best in the UK, but the exhaust noise is spot on. Even with the valves open, you've got that nice little purring noise as you're accelerating away, unless you're really on the throttle, then it opens up a bit. But just while driving, there's no droniness to it, so we'll just, even like sort of a half throttle acceleration, such a nice noise. I think it's definitely a car where you could get away with not needing to modify the exhaust system to make it louder to say this is an M car. I think it's spot on with the noise levels. Even around town, it can be a civilised car. I think the M4 you'd probably not struggle with a bit more, but the practicality side of things, with it being a 2-door rather than a 4-door, or 3 and 5-door, whatever you want to say. The ride's not hard. The suspension's like a nice ride, even with sort of the firmness of the seats. Nothing to complain about with like my back or anything like that. And I suppose for my age, I've got a pretty bad back. I'd say even just to have a little bit of fun in it, you don't need to go too mad putting it in sports mode, or like comfort's pretty decent for the odd blip here and there. I remember when I was driving the M4, the G82 M4, I didn't feel like, although I think technically it is a slightly wider car by 0.4 of an inch or something like that, something minuscule, something you'd never notice the difference of. I remember that not feeling like a particularly big car to drive, and this is the same. The driving position's spot on. I can just see a little bit of the bonnet and just see where it starts to slope down, which is what I like. I don't like to be sat below, like right below at the limit of the windscreen line where I'm just about looking above the steering wheel and you can't see any of the bonnet. I don't like that. I like to see where most parts of the car are, and I think this is a great all-round car for it. You obviously got windows all around, whereas the M4 is a coupe, so it's a slightly slanted rear screen. It's a little bit smaller, I think, to look out of, whereas this is a bit more airy, spacious, and better visibility, I guess. You say BMW M car, everyone goes M3. M3. Every time it's an M3. And I can see why. Even with controversial things that BMW have done, like the grille at the front, which people have come to love now. I mean, I certainly do. I hated it to start with, but now I actually think it looks so aggressive. But yeah, days like today, the car just does the talking for itself. It's like, don't like the M3, jump in an M3 and drive it, and by the time you get out of it and hand the keys back, you will. I mean, it's, the thing shifts. Obviously, I can imagine the Xdrive, depending on how you look at it, might take a bit of the fun away, might take a bit of the squirminess from the back end away, especially in damp conditions. But to contradict that, the Xdrive helps it accelerate quicker. So there's no sort of second guessing it. I think like the Xdrive is obviously going to be the most popular opinion out of the two. Popular choice out of the two. Even just like little downshifts and the let off and the burble from the back end, the little bob 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 bob. So nice. Heads up display up the front isn't too intrusive into the vision as well. It's perfect size. Even on a really bright day like today, you can still see it clearly. So again, that's really nice. And then coasting along around the lanes, you can just hear the engine ticking over. Not too loud. But yeah, you downshift, and especially when you start tweaking with the settings, going into Sports Plus, tweaking the chassis settings and the steering, and oh, how it can transform. Even with these sort of narrower parts of the country roads, sometimes you'd sort of think like, oh, there's a car coming the other way, breathe in, try and make yourself narrower. But no, it doesn't. Doesn't feel like a big car. It makes you feel very, very confident. Oh. It's one of them moments again where you'd think like, I'd done this with the M2. I drove an M2 for the day. I drove the M2 for the day, handed the keys back and said spec me one up because I fell in love. And this is the same sort of thing. I think, again, it was always that debate between M3 and M4, like personal choice is a 50-50 divide. I think I'm still torn, but I'm siding with the M3. I think it's just got that little bit of extra something about it. The gearbox does seem to be pretty bang on with this, no matter what mode it's in. It knows exactly what gear to give you, when to give it to you, and every gear shift is just seamless. And it's a well ratioed gearbox as well, 8-speed gearbox, and so which makes fuel economy a lot better as well. There hasn't been a moment today where I've not been uncomfortable, felt like I'm putting in a lot of effort. It's nice and easy to drive. Even the fuel economy is fairly good on it. I mean, I put 40 quid in it earlier just to top it up, and so far the needle's only just started moving. And I mean, you're not thinking of fuel economy when you're going to be like that pulls, that really does pull. I'll keep an eye on the GoPro on the outside to make sure it's not going to fly off. Oh. Yeah, the issues that I was talking about earlier with the iDrive, that I'm currently not thinking about that at all. I'm just concentrating on enjoying these bends. Brilliant. This is another one of these cars where you just cannot pick a fault with, I don't think. I haven't got any issues with it. Another good little feature that BMW didn't plan on this car is that when you turn on the parking assist and the camera shows up, you can see your GoPro on the bumper is still there. And that said GoPro is currently filming the exhaust noises, which currently from the outside probably sound a bit like this. That's a dirty noise. So it's getting to that point in the day where the heat is so much that the GoPros are cooking in the sun, and it's killing the batteries really quickly. So I'm going to go enjoy the couple of hours that I've got left with the car in this stunning weather, burn through the rest of the petrol that I've put in the tank, and get an ice cream, I think. Oh, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I have enjoyed making it. So, but yeah, thanks again for Inchcape Chelmsford for lending me the car for the day. Yeah, times like this I'll always remember. So, but yeah, I'm hopefully get some more cars through on the channel soon throughout the year, now the better weather's here. And yeah, we'll enjoy the Euro trip that's coming up shortly, about 4 weeks from now, and yeah, and then shortly followed by Goodwood when we get back from that. So there's a lot of content to come. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like and a subscribe to the channel if you don't already, and I will see you on the next one very soon. Cheers.